The pumpkin, an icon of the fall season, the spooky and the macabre, bringing families together and bringing popularity to its own family. We'll look into the history of the pumpkin, its many uses through history, and how it became the spooky mascot of Halloween. The pumpkin comes from the squash family of produce, also known as gourds. On a botanical level, the pumpkin is a fruit as it bears seeds that flower. Gourds have a long history and have been used for centuries across the world, notably as tools, musical instruments, and the subject of art. Hard-shelled gourds, once dried, take on properties not dissimilar to softwood. In 1937, the American Gourd Society established in Indiana and publishes a still-running magazine about the fruit. A collaborative study states that gourds likely travelled to the Americas from Asia over 10,000 years ago, either by sea or man. They would have come in the form of the original bottle gourd, which, at the time, were used as a container, as opposed to a food crop. From the bottle gourd, many variants were domesticated across South America, although the earliest evidence of the pumpkin was found in Mexico, between 5000 and 7000 BC. Through years of cultivation, domesticated squashes had been grown, and the pumpkin had its home. However, these pumpkins wouldn't resemble the classic bright orange, perfectly formed pumpkin as we recognize it today. These variants would be used when celebrating the Mexican holiday Day of the Dead, a holiday that originated in Aztec society. It was a celebration to remember the deceased. During the celebrations, the pumpkins would be used in culinary dishes and for ornamental purposes. The origins of the current symbolism of the pumpkin also dates back to Celtic origins, and will help lead us to the eventual shape and identity of the spooky orange icon. These Celtic origins date back to the Iron Age, between an estimated 500 BC to 500 AD. For the Celts, October 31st to November 1st marked the end of the harvest, and was considered across Ireland, Scotland, and other areas of Europe. This celebration was called Samhain. Samhain was a time of malevolence, death, and reflection. The Celtic people would use this date as an opportunity to mourn the deceased. However, it was believed that during this time, the dead would visit their homes, witches would cause mischief, and spirits conducted debauchery. The Wiccan religion, considered contemporary paganism, believed at this time the veil between the worlds of life and death were at their thinnest, hence the emerging dead. Some documents refer to Druids, the Celtic priests, sacrificing humans and cats in ceremonial fires, although this could be considered part of the lure of the event, and should be considered as such. Despite these evil connotations, Samhain was a time for celebration. Banquets would be served for both the living and the dead. Costumes would be worn for various reasons, including leading the dead away after the celebrations. People would carve faces into root vegetables from the harvest. These would include potatoes, turnips, and swedes, with a candle inserted into the carved vegetable. These were referred to as jack-o'-lanterns, with ties to a folklore tale. The story involves a mischievous Jack who makes a deal with the devil, preventing his soul from being taken to hell. However, due to Jack's behaviour, he was also barred from heaven. As a result, mischievous Jack's soul was left to roam the world. The devil gave Jack a burning ember to place within a half-eaten swede. Jack was to remain as a warning to others, lighting his way with the first ever jack-o'-lantern, Jack of the Lantern. It's believed that in an effort to compete with pagan holidays, it was easier to create a Christian observance of these holidays, rather than oppose them entirely. Through this adoption of Samhain, the Christian Church titled October 1st All Hallows Eve, followed by All Saints' Day. From 1492, the European colonization of the Americas began. The expansion across North and South America would take stride as early as the 16th century. During this colonization, the date of the Day of the Dead celebrations in Mexico would move from the beginning of August to October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd. The Great Potato Famine and the preceding Test Act of 1703 caused a large migration of Irish people to America, bringing with them the traditions of All Hallows Eve and All Saints' Day. Nearly half a century of cultivating the pumpkin varieties, the spooky, kooky, delicious and suspicious pumpkin we know today would be created. They're known as Connecticut field pumpkins. In the 1900s, pumpkins cultivated in Connecticut were used to source what was considered a fine standard of pumpkin. In 1940, one farmer, John Haldon, would select the best seeds from his farm of Connecticut field pumpkins and eventually cultivated the Haldon pumpkin. The Haldon is now considered the standard of the industry. By 1940, Halloween had grown from the Celtic celebration to a Christian holiday and onto a more relaxed cultural holiday. As the population rapidly increased, Halloween grew in popularity and became a mainstream holiday. The new brightly coloured Connecticut field and Hallowe'en pumpkins were far easier to carve than traditional turnips and Swedes. The pumpkins would also create a unique orange glow when the traditional candle was placed inside. As a result, these pumpkins became the go-to squash for carving on Halloween. As trick-or-treating grew in popularity through the 1900s, commercialization of the Halloween holiday escalated. Sweets, costumes, decorations, music and movies, nearly all carrying the bright orange iconic pumpkin. A symbol used to easily identify the spooky products and treats perfect for a Halloween party or visiting trick-or-treaters. The pumpkin solidified itself as the icon of Halloween, a symbol left outside houses to indicate this house is participating in the festivities. Another use of the pumpkin that grew in popularity through the 1900s was the pumpkin pie, now an icon of America in the fall and the Thanksgiving celebration. It's believed the recipe is a result of exporting American pumpkins to France, where the fruit would be used as a pie filling. Pumpkin spice, a flavour that could be considered a contemporary fad, actually has records going back to the turn of the 20th century. The spice, a mixture of clove, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger and allspice, was an integral part of the pumpkin pie recipe. The spice flavouring has famously been used in a range of products, most notably spice lattes. Films and media would also depict the pumpkin as a reference not only to Halloween, but all things spooky or creepy. The pumpkin has connections to many different areas of the globe, being used as many different items and food sources. Connecticut field pumpkins are simply the celebrity of the family, being a symbol of remembrance, humble reflection, and the macabre. Thank you for watching, and please do subscribe if you want to see more.